A 6-3 win for the Arizona Coyotes as they take down the Montreal Canadiens on the second game of a back-to-back. With some time off, we're going to take care of this game, talk about it, what happened for the Arizona Coyotes on this episode of Lockdown Coyotes.
Your Locked On Coyotes, your daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Robyn Leonio. That's Carl Pavlik on this episode of Lockdown Coyotes. It's our post-game show. Arizona Coyotes take down the Montreal Canadiens 6-3. We want to thank everyone for joining this episode, though, once again, and making a Lockdown Coyotes your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms. But with the win, Carl, the Arizona Coyotes are 100% swept through the East Canada teams.
They have something we talked about on the preview for this. Like the Coyotes could keep the brooms out, and they certainly did. It was not the most convincing game. Do not let the score fool you. The Coyotes did not have control of this game. They just happened to win a 6-3 game against another bad team.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. In fact, the Canadiens even had more possession in this game, believe it or not.
Yes. Than the Ottawa Senators last night, or
No, it wasn't that crazy. I think
yeah.
if we do the differential Corsi, I think it was like the last game against the Senators, it was plus 55 in favor of the Senators.
Yeah.
This one is plus 34.
So, an improvement, but also not a good game. It was a very weird game to watch, to listen to, because the Coyotes were ahead after a good first period when the Montreal Canadiens were not playing good. They turned it on, and yet somehow the Coyotes kept them at bay, but never looked in control.
Yeah, it was interesting following through it all, especially because the Coyotes scored the first two goals of the game within the first 6 minutes, right?
Yes.
Those
Within the first 4 minutes.
within the first 4 minutes, what is going on? And again, these are two teams that are tanking, so it's really a question is who's going to try to tank more. And despite Montreal having better numbers, they tanked better.
Well, it was crazy because the Coyotes got the 2 goals in 4 minutes. Then friend of the show, Lauren Dauphin, got the goal in the first period off his jersey to split the Coyotes lead in half, and they doubled up with goals from Richie and Lawson Krause. So that first period where you're being outscored or you're outscoring your opponents, but you're being outshot. That's a weird position to be in. And then the Montreal Canadiens just took control, but failed to score for most of the rest of the game.
What astonished me though is I honestly thought the Coyotes were going to go through a collapse. Because there was that period at the end of the second period, where that game that it was oh, we're gonna see one of these games, aren't we?
I mean, yeah. Cole Caulfield, 2 goals in 8 seconds.
I mean, let's be fair. I think that's one of the fastest too in the NHL. 2 goals in 8 seconds from the single player.
Yes, although I saw a tweet that he was still 3 seconds too long to have the Canadiens record, which I have to imagine was set the 1950s.
You gotta imagine, because that's when things were different. Then that's the reason why the highest goal scored trophy is the name the Rocket Richard Trophy
Yeah.
because
But I just imagine some guy in the 1950s doing half slap shots from center ice and just trickling
oh
past the goaltender who can't
yeah.
make a save.
But then again, I don't know what I was saying. I don't know what I'm thinking though in saying that that would have led to a collapse when the same thing happened last week against the Toronto Maple Leafs when it was 2 goals in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, it should have served as a wake up call, but it did not.
no,
So,
the third period was absolutely terrible.
yes. It felt less like a wake up call for the team and more like a wake up call for like anyone watching the game because you're like, "Oh no, the Coyotes were not doing good in this game at all. The Montreal Canadiens were just doing really bad up until a point and then they could just turn it on in a second."
I think the Montreal Canadiens were just like, "Oh, wait, we have the puck in our in their offensive zone. Let's just for the sake of possession metrics and Corsi, let's just shoot it. Doesn't matter if it goes on the on net or anything. Let's just shoot it."
Yeah. Yeah, it was not fun. And I do think the Coyotes like played a decent enough like first period. Like it was an okay start, and then when you have a 3 goal lead, you are more defensive. We talked about this, like we've always talked about this. You kind of go into a shell. Not ideal. It happened. And it was going okay, but as the Coyotes have learned this year, power play goals can turn things around, and the Coyotes got one tonight. But like normally, we're talking about them not getting a power play goal and it not turning things around. So it's just one of those lessons that continue to learn. Like, do not let your opponents score power plays and try and score power plays.
Yeah, that's definitely the thing, and I think the thing that we fail to keep remembering when it comes to thinking about those kind of things is again the Coyotes were playing the Montreal Canadiens.
Yes.
like, I don't know what we expected because I think I still said it was going to be over, but
We
I
both
said, oh,
said over.
we both said over, but I don't think we thought it was going to be like this again.
Well, in our defense, we said it was going to be close, and it was.
That
The
like it was if you went based off of like uh
the actual
just
game played, not the
yeah,
actual
the
score.
actual gameplay rather than what the score sheet actually says. The score
Yeah,
sheet was like, oh yeah, the Coyotes got this one.
yeah.
But
We predicted the game correctly. The Coyotes and the Montreal Canadiens just failed to have their score reflect reality. I think that's the best way to say that.
it is. I'm gonna look real quickly through some of the other stats uh before we move on to the next segment, and that is just a quick baseline to kind of give you guys an idea of how this was in terms of Corsi, scoring chances, and expected goals. Kind of how much closer was this than we actually thought, or in terms of, or more in favor of Montreal as it should have been. 65-39 was uh, the Corsi in favor of the Canadiens. Scoring chances 34-21. High danger Corsi 11-9 in favor of Montreal. Expected goals 2.52 to 2.25.
Honestly, the high danger being like as close as they were, that's one that stands out to me. Like
I
that's one of
mean,
those where like I love those stats because it totally kind of like isn't something I'm thinking about, but like just like my initial eye test is like, oh, that was rough.
I mean, it seems like it might be off to start, but then you take a look at the heat map and where all the shots were for Montreal. Look at that.
Oh yeah, that was a lot right there. And then I'm looking at the Coyotes goals. Oh, yeah.
The Coyotes goals were all within towards the slot. Look at that. With one over by the face-off circle.
That is, yeah. It was a very weird game. I feel like the statistic, the stats, somehow make it a little bit more confusing.
It does. It absolutely does. But you know what? The Arizona Coyotes got the win. They completed the sweep. I know we're supposed to be more, touting towards the rebuild and talk about, getting a good draft pick, but nothing makes me happier than saying that the Arizona Coyotes swept Eastern Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And not just on the road trip, but as a whole.
Yeah, it is definitely especially this year when the Coyotes have been kind of the laughing stock of the NHL world. They are the bad team that somehow beat the two bad Canadian teams in the eastern part of the continent, but also the good Canadian team. That's fun. I like that.
Oh, yeah, it is indeed. We still got more to get to, though, on this episode of Lockdown Coyotes. We're going to talk about some of the players who made good contributions and some of the fun stat lines that we got a chance to see out of the outcome of this game. All that and more on this episode of Lockdown Coyotes. But first, a quick word from Carl.
So I have a message from our friends at Boat Bar, and that's, have you tried the puffs? If not, you're missing out on one of the best tasting Built Bar flavors. The puffs are the first ever protein infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, they're not just a protein bar, they're a treat. And they're covered in 100% real chocolate. The puffs are a fan favorite with some incredible flavors. You got the yummy cinnamony churro, you got the coconut marshmallow, my favorite, the banana cream pie. They're all so good. You're gonna find one that will be your new favorite. Plus, all Built Bars, including the puffs, are covered in 100% real chocolate. Built Bars are a better option if you're someone who likes a candy bar. They only have 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. What I want you to do is go to built.com and use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com.
So back here on Lockdown Coyotes, once again, Arizona takes down Montreal 6-3 over in Montreal, as the Arizona Coyotes finish off their road trip, and they come home yet with another win. They have like a week off now, but let's go ahead and talk about the not a week. They come back. They end this weekend, but
Yeah, they play Saturday.
he plays Saturday. But it's enough of a break.
It's like most of a work week, so yeah.
Exactly. But let's go ahead and get to the some of the stat lines, as we mentioned, like player stat lines, not just the overall stat lines as I mentioned before, but the player stat lines, because we got some interesting ones based off who were pretty big contributors for this. And let's start with our good friend Lawson Krause, who we mentioned with a hat trick in the previous game, and now go ahead and gets another goal. Lawson Krause is on a roll.
Yeah. It was a statement goal, 11 or less than 11 seconds left in the first period, gets the breakaway and just shoots and fires for his 19th of the season. Just phenomenal goal from Krause to really give the Coyotes what should have been momentum going into the second season or second period. Sorry.
And it's funny because I think I was listening to the radio broadcast, and obviously Bob Heathouse was pretty excited when he's saying, "Oh, Lawson Krause, 4th goal in 2 games," and it's like, look at that.
I mean, especially because it was a good night for former Roadrunners.
Yeah, because Lawson Krause was one, and and I think that was a pretty fun one to watch. From former Roadrunners, Barrett Hayton got a goal as you mentioned. He is one that opened it up.
Yep.
It was just fun. Yeah, it was fun, right?
Definitely. Uh, and like it's good to see Kraus just continuing the offense. In general, he's kind of a you know he has those kind of like fun, like good bursts, but it's nice to see him finding his consistency, especially after last season where he just had like all of the right like plays, but just could not find the back of the net.
I was just gonna bring that up. Like
Yeah.
I was thinking like think about what we were talking about. Before you became co-host, I brought you on a guest multiple times, and like multiple times we would talk about. Let's talk about Lawson Cross and just how unlucky this kid is. He's just not getting the finishes. He looks good, but he's not getting the finishes. And now, a year later, we're like, let's talk about Lawson Cross. This dude is amazing.
Yeah. And I think it kind of goes to like show how like how how everyone recognized that Lawson Krause was unlucky. Like there was no real talk that he was bad or he wasn't like living up to the hype. Like from start to finish, everything I saw like interacting with people on Five for Howling was like this guy is snake bitten. Like I don't know what happened. Like did he piss someone off or they like cursed him? I don't know. But like everyone could tell that like he was gonna have a rebound, and he has. Like that's just great, and it shows that he was playing the right way the entire time.
Two other major contributors that I want to bring up are Clayton Keller and Nick Schmaltz. And you have some stat line about their points and like both of those players' points in just the last 7 games. I believe it was.
Yes. So both players are on a 7-game point streak. Nick Schmaltz has 17 points in those 7 games, which is understandable. He had a 7-point night. Uh, almost like as surprising to me, Clayton Keller has 14 points in that. Like Nick Schmaltz had a franchise-setting night, and Clayton Keller is still only 3 points behind him. That's really just phenomenal.
There was a couple other things that I was reading too when I was um, going through Twitter on some of these. And some people were making some tweets about these players, and I'm trying to see where some of it was. Um, some reason it's lost, but they're making some big contributions, and it's freaking awesome. And again, both of them are like also like at what 18, 19 goals or whatever, 17, or is it 17, 19? Some
Uh, Schmaltz is at 18 goals, and
Ke-
then
oh,
Keller's at 26.
Keller's at 26. That's right. And then it was it was Kraus the one you mentioned that was that close also.
Yeah.
But you have two players again that was we mentioned in the pregame that are close to 20. And again, as we mentioned also pregame, like who would have thought that we'd have 3 players get to that close to the 20 goal score mark? Like it's
And just kind of for perspective, Clayton Keller is at 34 assists, so he is currently at 60 points. That is surprising. Uh, I remember a big thing Craig Morgan used to do. I haven't seen as much now because they're doing really well. He would poll like fans on what he thought what they thought Clayton Keller and Nick Schmaltz and Christian Dvorak, Jacob Chikrin, like all those players should be. And I think the top tier was usually like 75. Clayton Keller has like a realistic chance of maybe hitting that if he continues this hot streak.
there are and because of the how you mentioned the points for the Arizona Coyotes and how they are of stats wise, they have multiple players that are above a point per game.
Yeah. Just who would have thought? Like, I don't know if it is like Bear system, if it is just these players or what. Like, everything is clicking for the Coyotes. I fully expect something to go wrong and the Coyotes to have at least one more 5-game losing streak. But this kind of is like a good indication of what the Coyotes could be in the next couple of years.
Another fun stat that someone brought up, and I'm bringing this one up too. Someone said that the Arizona Coyotes are 6-1 in the month of March, with scoring 5.29 goals a game. Who is this team, Carl?
I honestly do not know. This is honest. I cannot state this enough. This is better than the expectations I had for the Coyotes this season. In general, I thought the Coyotes may have 120 goal scorer. I did not expect them to have 3, and I did not expect Phil Kessel to not be one of them.
I know, right? It's like, what? Like, huh? Tell me again.
It's I do not think it'll last, but for right now, gotta ride the hype train, baby.
Oh, absolutely. As we mentioned in the pregame show, take as much like of the happy stuff as much as you can for these Coyotes, because we're not going to get a whole lot of it. I mean,
No,
there's these glimpses that are going to make you feel good. Take advantage of.
yeah, definitely. If you're a fan, you should absolutely be enjoying this time right now. And just in general, know that no matter what happens next, because the next week may hurt if you have some like favorite players, like things have already gone better than we could have expected.
Absolutely. We still got more to get to, though, on this episode of Lockdown Coyotes. We're going to talk about a couple of other things that happened in this game. It's going to be an interesting conversation in just a moment. But first, a quick word from our sponsors. And we're back here on Lockdown Coyotes. Once again, we want to thank everyone for making Lockdown Coyotes your first listen every day. We really appreciate all your support. Let's now go to our final conversation. And Carl, you brought this up. You said this is something you wanted to talk about before we went live, and it was a decision made by Canadiens coach Martin St. Louis
Yep.
to pull their goaltender Monteblanc, how do you pronounce his name, with
It was Primo at the time
it's
because
Primo.
Montaball had been pulled
That's right.
after the first. Yeah.
That's right. But pulling Primo, and with what, 4 minutes, over 4 minutes left,
Over 4 minutes left. Yes.
and it was at that point it was a 5-3 game.
So I did want to talk about this. This is something that we have talked about a lot. This is something that I am very interested in. It is like something that Patrick Waugh brought to my attention, and from now on, I will never not be thinking about it. Pulling your goaltender early. I could kind of see what the Montreal Canadiens were thinking, because, and especially Martin St. Louis, it's definitely his call, because the Canadiens were playing good in the third period. Like, if you get that one goal, you don't necessarily have to pull your goaltender right away. You can maybe like give it a couple minutes, but at least you're in there right away. Not much to lose anyways. But the Coyotes were also not staying in their own zone like consistently. It wasn't like the Ottawa Senators, where the Senators were just keeping the Coyotes penned in. They were like at least clearing the puck. So that's a really interesting risk reward. And I was just kind of curious what your thoughts were on like a 4-minute pull. Like, do you like the late pull? Do you think 4 minutes is excessive? What is your opinion? Because I kind of see both sides.
I see both sides of one. I think it depends on how much confidence you have in your unit that you have on the ice,
Yeah,
right? And the confidence in who you have as your extra attacker.
yeah.
And are you confident that this team can sustain a high forecheck, high pressure, and be able to stay and create in the zone? I am somewhat questioning Martin St. Louis on that decision because of how how the game flow was in this case. But there are several cases where I've seen it happen, and there's no goals against in that case because it is a crazy offensive rush on this side, and it looks like it could very well work. Again, a pulled goaltender doesn't always work no matter what. An extra attacker, it's hard because that means you're just adding more traffic onto the ice.
Yeah. And I mean, like, they had Cole Caulfield score 2 goals in 8 seconds. Like, that feels like if you're on the bench and you see that happen and there's like less than 5 minutes ticking down, you're down by 2, why wouldn't you just be like, I don't know, what the hell? Let's give it a try. Let's see what he can do.
The one thing where I like one of the situations where I see something like this working, it would be and work well, on an early goal like that would be like if the Coyotes committed a penalty
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, got a power play, but you know what? Instead of 5-on-4, let's make it 6-on-4.
The problem with the power play, though, is when they're on the penalty kill, they can ice the puck without having to worry about that. So you're just doing shots from like the face-off shots like into like the other end of the ice. Like that's something that I'm always like thinking about. Like the best kind of situation is being down a man with less than 2 minutes because you could just ice the puck. In
But
my
again,
opinion, I'm sure that doesn't work out like numbers wise.
I also think in the other situation is you got to think of the kind of team that each team that you're playing against. In the case of the Coyotes, who doesn't have a good penalty kill unit, you
Yeah.
take advantage of your man advantage.
Yeah. I mean, Lawson Cross did get that shorthanded with goal last night.
He did. Again, that's rare. We don't see that often for the like if we're talking 2 years ago,
Yeah.
we're like, "Oh, this is a normal occurrence."
No, I love the chess match that is pulling your goaltender early. I think it is the ultimate risk reward like play in hockey, and it is like the best kind of indication of what type of coach you are, because like that is like the game on the line. You go big or you go home, and I respect that. And I like Martin St. Louis for giving it a try. It didn't work
Mhm.
out, and it was probably the wrong game to try it on, but I liked the try, like
Oh,
in
no,
the abstract.
absolutely. I like that try, absolutely. One thing I will say too about just pulling a goaltender in general is have you ever I'm pretty sure you've done this, but like the casual hockey fan won't pay attention to it and they just see the goalie leave.
Yeah.
Have you ever watched the coach instead of you weren't even paying attention to what's going on in the ice in the final minute, whatever, when you know a goaltender's going to pull, you just watch the coach, seeing when he's going to signal to pull the goaltender.
Yes. Oh yeah. Like especially in like the smaller arenas. I have watched games at Oceanside, so I have been right above the coaching to see them pull, and it's always fun because the goaltender starts to come out a little bit, but they don't want to go out too far. So it's like this nice little like kind of like, should I go? Should I go? Should I go? And then just all of a sudden like, yep, and you're like just sprint.
Yeah, I watch when I watch all the Roadrunners games, like I see like when they're getting ready to do the face off, Jay Verity is kind of like putting his hand out with like kind of like a stop sign, it's like hold
Yeah.
it, and then like once he sees that there's enough momentum, he's like go 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 go.
and and honestly, like I feel like goaltenders now are much more comfortable being like at the face-off dots for like a pull. Like I don't know if that's just in my like recency bias, but it feels like when I was like watching hockey 10 years ago, goaltenders weren't like that confident about doing that in the way that they are consistently now.
And I think it's because of the way the game has changed. For a while it was a very defensive minded game, and now offense is here is like is so crazy that like if you are confident that your team can have a good forecheck, then you're like, yeah, I can stick around right here.
Yeah. Or like goaltending skates changed in such a way where they're like, no, we can just skate much better now. Like I do love how like hockey is that thing where like skill improves the game, but also just general equipment makes things better.
Better skates and just better pads, smaller because like obviously the talking pad size we're talking like what a 30-year difference, like like 30-year difference, because like what during the you know the previous era when you had goaltenders with pads bigger than themselves, like
Yeah. Yeah, pads are still probably too big. Nets should maybe be a little bit bigger, but it seems to be trending in the right direction. Which is I think probably the first time we can say that as NHL fans when it comes to like offense. Like things seem to be picking up. When the Coyotes in a tank year are a high offense team, something's going on in the NHL. I was gonna say good or bad, but something, a thing is happening.
I mean it's weird though, because that was only in the last in this month, because what the first 3 months of the even the first 4 months of the season, the Coyotes had what an average goals of 2.
Yeah, yeah. They're like their average may still be at like for the season like in the two. I'm sure it is, but you do have to look at the fact like there was pretty significant injuries. Nick Schmaltz, who has been tearing up the NHL, was injured for most of the season. Like, how much did that make a difference?
Injured for most of the season, yet he's like 42 points in his 41 games played. Like
I, I don't know. I honestly do not know. The 7 game is or 7 point game is definitely going to inflate his stats, but just in general, he's been extremely hot, and that's just something we can hope continues. Knock on wood.
I just kind of had this, thought in my head that just came up now. I think the Ottawa Senators hate Nick Schmaltz.
Ah, I hope so. Like, I really hope that he lives in their dreams. Oh no, wait. We have an example for this. Do you remember the Uber incident with the Ottawa Senators in the
Oh man, the whole Uber story. Oh god.
I doubt that'll happen, and I know Canadian laws are different with regards to filming because they were complaining about that a lot of the time. But I hope Nick Schmaltz inspires Uber ride conversations for the Ottawa Senators.
Oh, that would be so funny. That would be absolutely amazing. Anyways, though, once again, final score for the Arizona Coyotes against Montreal Canadiens. Coyotes take the win, 6-3. The final score. That's going to be it for this post-game show. Hope you guys all like what you heard. If you did, don't forget to leave a review, like, comment, subscribe if you have yet to already. We're available everywhere you get your podcast, including on YouTube. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/LockedOnCoyotes, on Instagram at LockedOnCoyotes, and on Twitter at LO_Coyotes. I am personally at Robyn_Leonio. Carl Pavlik is Carl Pavlik FFH. Ask us a question, DM us, mention us, whatever you want, and we can answer right back or on a future episode of the Lockdown Coyotes podcast. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to today's episode. Hope you guys are staying safe out there. Hope you guys are staying healthy. And don't forget to howl on.